Welcome back into the Sports Source. This segment of our program brought to you by A.G. Hines Company. Do-it-yourselfers out there, you have a choice. You can overpay at one of the big national chains, or to get your tools and building materials at the proper price with the proper people helping you, telling you what that project needs, how you can put it together and do it the right way, then you can go to A.G. Hines Company. Those are your choices. A.G. Hines Company, smart, big chain, overpay. Those are your choices. I would say go to A.G. Hines Company. They've been doing it for more than 100 years, right in downtown Knoxville. aghines.com to learn more. All right, let's welcome in three more of today's panel. We have right here VFL Marlon Walls with us. Not happy today. Good to have you here, though. VFL Sterling Hinton. He's putting on a happy face, but we know better. Thanks for being here.
Glad to be here, John P.
99.1 The Sports Animals. Josh Ward is right there. Josh, thanks for being with us.
Thanks, Sean.
All right. This segment is always what did we learn, kind of small things, big things. I'm going to start with Josh and let you go. What did you learn last night?
Well, I think I learned that Tennessee was not ready for the stage that was presented the way that I thought Tennessee was. I didn't see any of the signs that showed up immediately last night, as you guys talked about last segment, and all the attention that Tennessee was receiving. Jalen Hyatt getting national coverage. He's on Rich Eisen talking about what he might be able to do going back to Columbia, South Carolina. By the way, I thought he would go back to Columbia and put up big numbers, but it didn't show up. And South Carolina looked like the team that really wanted to put on a show. Tennessee looked like it had already shown what it had to do when it still had 2 games to go.
One comment on Jalen Hyatt that ties into something else. Last week he ended that game with a couple of drops. Now he's had a spectacular year. The guy has been in the race for the Biletnikoff. He had a couple drops last week, which was his issue last year. He had a couple of drops again this week. So that's about at least 4 drops in the last 2 games. Mm-hmm. That's a concern at this point. Sterling Hinton, what did you learn last night?
Last night I learned it's hard to win a game, without your soul. And I'm not talking about the soul of a player. I'm talking about the soul of a squad. Banks wasn't there.
Jeremy Banks was left out. Yep.
He is as important to this defense as Al Wilson was to the '98 defense. That's their leader. I don't know what happened. Rumors follow as they go,
which we'll discuss later.
But it's hard to step up when someone's trying to attack you as the hunted without your soul to stop that from happening. And that's what happened to Jeremy Banks.
Well, Marlon, we were just talking, you can go in a different direction, but in between segments, you were kind of talking about that same kind of thing, that at some point, usually defense getting slapped around like that, there's somebody that's jerking necks, and you didn't have that last night.
Yeah, one thing that frustrated me last night, and I talked about it the entire game just watching it, the one thing that frustrated me was when your defense is having that kind of game, I would love to see somebody pull that squad over and give it to them, rip them a little bit. Right? Tell them cats to wake up. Hey, what's in front of us? I didn't see that last night, and that concerned me more than anything else. The fact that we did not have anybody step up, and like you said, that might have been Banks.
That's Banks' job.
We didn't see anybody on the telecast show those guys brought up and saying, hey, look, remember what's in front of us. What are we supposed to be doing today? And so that concerns me more than anything else.
And I want to tag off what Marlon just said. Have somebody do that, and they listen and respond.
Yeah, that's true.
How many times we see Lynn Little and Al Wilson, and the guys respond. A lot of guys have a guy that'll do something, but are they responding to him?
Are we listening?
And people respond to Banks.
I think you had the wrong kind of chirping out there. Instead of talking to each other and getting their stuff corrected, you had a lot of guys. It wasn't just who I'm going to name, but he was the ringleader, Kamal Haddon. Yeah. They were popping off a lot for a group that it was like every time a pass was completed on him, every time he missed a tackle, he had to get up jawing. He was jawing at the South Carolina coaches at one point. Yeah. And again, he wasn't the only one. Other guys were doing that. I had a problem with that. At some point, I'm sitting there thinking, you know what? Maybe it's time to put some walk-ons back out there. If you're not going to show up and play, zip it. You look like a fool if you're talking and sucking at the same time.
And that's another thing that concerned me as well is you're taking that kind of beating. For me yesterday, Tennessee did not look like a team that was on a mission. You had all these other close games that happened. 1 through 4 struggled that entire day. Heck, Georgia put on a 16-6 versus Kentucky.
Right.
Your mindset should be, we're on a mission. The college football playoffs is in front of us. Show up. We're not having the best game. Let's finish the game.
That's weird.
We should not be chirping. right? When you do that, now you're allowing South Carolina to get in your mindset. You've lost complete focus of college football playoffs, and so that alarmed me last night.
We were discussing before the show that very thing, and we also brought up the fact that when South Carolina didn't take they wasn't their backups in there throwing late. They had their starters in there moving the ball late, which, hey, if you score on somebody late, don't cry when somebody else does it to you. That's not my point. My point is when they scored their last touchdown, they didn't have it on the screen, but Herbstreit and Fowler made a point, which tells you it had to stand out to them. They made a point that Beamer was animated, staring at the Tennessee sideline at that point. They kept commenting, we look forward to seeing the post-game handshake. Fans came on the field, Heupel went the other way, you didn't get the handshake. But we were saying, what's the bad blood here? Is it recruiting? Nobody could figure out what the bad blood may or may not be. You tossed out, maybe they got tired of guys chirping at their sideline.
Yeah, it's possible. I mean, that's I don't know. When
it's just a guess. Yeah, you're welcome to the media.
Well, yeah, and that's fine. But it's, to me, I don't know that draws that type of response from the head coach, but it could. We don't know. I mean, it could be a lot of different things, but there's definitely something to it. And unfortunately, we haven't seen the video of it yet, and none of the coaches are going to talk about it.
For me, last night, I was frustrated at the chirping because it shows an undisciplined team. At that point in time, I'd have liked to see somebody on the coaching staff grab 5 and say, you're done for the day. We're losing. We're not putting up the performance we want to put up. But more than anything else, in football, if you're an undisciplined football team, your chances of losing those kind of games go up extremely more than it would if you're not having the best performance and you're undisciplined. You're going to lose that football game.
The problem with it, in my opinion, is that it's contagious, and it's contagious on both sides. So now you have your own players that, okay, he's chirping, I'm going to chirp too. But on the other side, your coaches, your players are able to say, see, we told you they're front runners. And that to me, now that's going to instill confidence in that team, and you're going to keep – we've all been in situations where you start to get the edge on an opponent and you start to get in his head, and you recognize that. You understand that. You can see it. It's tangible. I think maybe some of that happened where South Carolina started to believe more and more as they could witness Tennessee losing their self-control.
Let me throw out 2 quick stats I want to get in here. One of them, they're both things we've pointed out on the show in the past few weeks and had some blowback. That's ridiculous. It's nonsense. Well, the trend is growing. Let's go ahead and take a look at Tennessee at home versus on the road this year. 4 games against Power 5 opponents at home. Tennessee wins 50-28. That's your average score in those 4 home games against Power 5 foes. Your average score in 4 road games versus Power 5 foes, a 31-33 loss. 50 points at home in 4 Power 5 games, averaging 31 on the road. Look, all teams are better at home than they are on the road. That is a monster difference, and that's something to watch with this offensive system, I think, moving forward. That's just, let's make a note in it. Let's make a note of it, stick a pin in it. We're going to be discussing that all off season next year. That's one to watch. Let me give you another stat here that we talked about, and this is another one that it's very interesting. We pointed this out. Josh Heupel now 16-8 at Tennessee overall. It's great. Considering what he inherited, that's fantastic. 12 of those 16 wins, Tennessee jumped on the other team and never trailed. 12 out of the 16 wins. Tennessee is 4-2 when they've trailed by 10 or fewer. But including last night, the latest example, you are now 0-6 when you go down by 11 or more, which seems incredibly and counterintuitive to me. You would think if you have a high-flying, up-tempo offense, no deficit is too big. That would be my thought. But you're 0-6. Is there a reason for that, Storm? Because we can't just say, well, it's a better team. South Carolina's not a better team.
Well, those numbers are definitely eye-popping. But, being an offensive mind like myself, I can't say I'm never going to lose a game if I'm down by 11. So I'm looking about winning and coming back as long as I got time on the clock, especially with this offense.
Josh, does anything stand out to you? I mean, I don't know how to explain it, but at some point a trend's a trend.
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to see more numbers. Does the need to run the football, which is clearly
they
a part
got
of this
away
offense,
from,
that goes away, and then you get out of what you're wanting to do. Also, this offense puts strain on the defense, right? Well, if you're already behind, that means your defense has probably had some issues. Can they catch back up? Last night, obviously, they could not.
Very good. All right, we got to. One last thing. the orange helmets didn't seem to go over well with some of the guys on this set.
Burn them.
We got boos and burns. I thought it was like watching Clemson, personally.
Yeah,
Exactly.
favorite.
Yeah, looked like Clemson. All right.
Yep.
All right, when we come back, what are we doing next? We'll do something next. Come on. I think we're going to talk Hendon Hooker. Hendon Hooker next. That's a terrible situation. We'll talk about that. We got to look at bowl outlooks to come. We'll talk about Vanderbilt. We're going to talk more about this defense, so keep coming back.
Miss an episode? Catch up at sportsource.tv or our YouTube channel.